So let us now proceed with our continuing lesson on connective tissues. Alright, so like what I mentioned in our previous meeting, connective tissue has the following functions. Alright, so first we have a binding and supporting of other cells and tissues. Right, binding and support. Then we have protection. Also, connective tissues are involved in insulation of certain body organs, certain parts of the body. Next, we have storing reserve fuel as in the case of adipose tissue. And the transport of substances within the body as in the case of the blood, because the blood is a liquid connective tissue. So those are the major functions of connective tissue: for binding and support, protection, insulation, storage of reserve fuel as in the case of adipose or fat tissue, and the transport of substances as in the case of the blood. In terms of the structure of connective tissues, now connective tissues has three main components. Alright, so first we have the ground substance, fibers, and the cells. Now, together with the ground substance and fibers, which we will be mentioning later, this makes up what we call the extracellular matrix. So the composition of these three elements vary tremendously from one organ to the other, and this offers a great diversity in the types of connective tissue. So the extracellular matrix really determines the type of connective tissue. Like for example, for bone tissue, the extracellular matrix is made up mostly of calcium. In the case of cartilage, the extracellular matrix is made up of collagen. So the type of connective tissue or the cellular matrix, extracellular matrix, really offers a great diversity in the types of connective tissue. Okay, now we mentioned a while ago the fibers that makes up the connective tissue. Now there are three types of fibers found in connective tissue. So first we have collagen. Alright, collagen. Then this is also followed by elastic fibers and reticular fibers. Okay, collagen, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. So let's have a quick review, though I have mentioned this already in our last meeting. Let us review the details about these three types of connective tissue fibers, starting with collagen. Now, collagen or collagen fibers, they are considered as the strongest and the most abundant of all the connective tissue fibers. Alright, so asahan natin yan under the microscope, medyo makapal yan because they are the strongest and also they are the most abundant. Collagen fibers are fibrous proteins and they are secreted into the extracellular space and they provide a high tensile strength to the matrix. So as you could see here in this photo micrograph of these fibers and collagen fibers, they are somewhat thick, makapal sila, no? Ito yung red, yung mga red fibers na yan, those are the collagen fibers. So, the structure really determines the function. So, makapal sila and they provide tensile strength to the tissue itself. Okay, the strongest and the most abundant of the three types of connective tissue fibers. No, yung red na ito, yung mga red network of fibers, those are collagen fibers. Okay, then we have the so-called elastic fibers. Elastic fibers, on the other hand, are long, thin fibers that form branching network in the extracellular matrix, as you could see in this photo micrograph of the connective tissue. So itong mga purple thin fibers, those are the elastic fibers. Alright, they are long, thin, and they form branching network okay, in the extracellular matrix. Okay, by the name itself, elastic, they help the connective tissue to stretch and to recoil. So hence the term elastic tissue fibers. Alright, so we have collagen fibers here, yung makapal na red. Okay, that forms a tensile strength to the tissue. And these elastic fibers, yung purple, long and thin fibers that allows the tissue to stretch and recoil. Alright, then we have these reticular fibers. Reticular fibers are short, fine collagenous fibers that can branch extensively to form a delicate network. So as you could see here, this is a portion of liver tissue, and those dark branching fibers, those are the reticular fibers in this piece of liver tissue. Alright, and these reticular fibers, they provide additional strength to the liver tissue itself. Alright, so those are the types of fibers, connective tissue fibers found in connective tissue. So collagen, then we have elastic fibers, and we have reticular fibers. Alright, so moving on. Alright, so again, a quick review of the function of connective tissues. So connective tissues function primarily to support the body, okay, and to bind or connect other tissue types. Now, this was mentioned already a while ago. The connective tissue also provide a mechanical framework, as in the case of the skeleton, yung bone tissue, which plays an important role in locomotion. This is together with cartilage. No? Cartilage and bone, they provide mechanical framework which plays an important role in locomotion. Alright, then unlike epithelial tissue, connective tissue is characterized by a large amount of extracellular substance, or the matrix contains these cells and fibers. Alright, so in terms now of the classification of connective tissue can be classified into three. There are three major types of connective tissues. So we have connective tissue proper, we have supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. So under connective tissue proper, we have the following: loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. Under loose connective tissue, we have areolar, adipose, and reticular. Under dense connective tissue, we have regular dense connective tissue and irregular dense connective tissue. Then for supportive connective tissue, we have cartilage and bone. Now, under cartilage, we have three types of cartilage. We have hyaline, elastic, and fibrous. Alright, then we have bone tissue. And lastly, we have fluid connective tissue. This refers to the blood. The blood is the only liquid connective tissue. So we have the blood and lymph. Okay, so let us now go into the details of these types of connective tissue, starting with loose connective. So loose connective tissue, as we mentioned before, is the most widespread connective tissue of the body. It is characterized by an abundance of ground substance plus thin and relatively few fibers and cells. Okay, so that's how we describe loose connective. And again, there are three types of loose connective tissue. We have areolar and adipose. So we will just focus on these two. We will have a separate discussion of reticular connective tissue when we study the liver. So for adipose, or fat connective tissue, also known as fat tissue or fatty tissue, this is a connective tissue that is mainly composed of fat cells called adipocytes. Now, as you could see in our photomicrograph of this type of tissue. So the cells that comprises this type of tissue are called adipocytes. Okay, adipocytes, as described here, are energy storing cells, no, that contain large globules, no, malalaki yung kanilang mga vesicles. And these globules contain lipid droplets or triglycerides. And they are surrounded by a structural network of fibers. Ayan. So the cells, the adipocytes, contain these large vesicles that store these large globules of triglycerides or lipid droplets. Okay, so here is a illustration of this type of tissue, adipose connective tissue. So again, the extracellular matrix is collagenous or collagen. Then you have the following cells here. The most abundant cells are the adipocytes. So as you could see here, you have that large droplet containing triglycerides. The nucleus and cytoplasm is pushed to one side, right, because of those large lipid droplets or triglycerides. All right, then you have the usual cells in the extracellular matrix like fibroblasts and mesenchymal stem cells. Alright, so as you can see here, the most abundant cells are the adipocytes. Okay, so that's the appearance of these adipocytes. So you could see here those large droplets of lipids. And yung mga itim-itim na yan, those are the nuclei and cytoplasm that is pushed to one side because of the lipid droplets that are contained in the vesicles of these adipocytes. That's adipose tissue. There are three types of adipose tissue. So we have white adipocyte, okay, beige adipocyte, may kulay, no? White adipocyte, beige adipocyte, and brown adipocyte. May color, no? White, beige, and brown. Alright, so may mga functions yan, no? So for white adipocyte, in terms of its appearance, ayan, no, so malaki yung fat globules niya, yung fat droplet that is stored. There are few organelles, no, kasi mas marami yung yung fat droplet, no, kaysa dun sa mga organelles. And they are the most abundant type of adipocyte in this type of tissue. So the white adipose tissue is the predominant type of fat in our body. Location of these white adipose tissue, so you can find them in the skin. Yung ilalim, yung subcutaneous layer ng skin, yan, white adipose tissue yan. Internal organs, in central cavities, and sa bones. Diba yung bone, meron siyang, yung yellow bone marrow. No, the yellow bone marrow is made up of this type of adipose tissue. So, yellow. Kasi ang bone, di ba, may red bone marrow, may yellow bone marrow. The yellow bone marrow basically is adipose tissue that is white. No, white adipose tissue. Other functions of white adipose cells, so they insulate the body from extreme temperatures. Kaya di ba yung ilalim ng skin, yung subcutaneous layer, is made up of this type of adipose tissue, yung white adipose tissue. Regulation of temperature, cushioning of vital organs, create hormones, and biological factors. Ayan. So again, itong mga white adipocytes na ito, they are greatly involved in the regulation of body temperature and cushioning of vital organs. Okay, what about the beige adipocyte or beige adipose tissue? So they are scattered among the white adipocytes and they sometimes generate heat. So yun yung kanyang function. But the cell, the adipocyte that really generates heat are the brown adipocytes. So again, like for white adipose tissue, the brown adipocyte, they have many fat droplets and many mitochondria. Okay, so brown adipocyte, again, like what I mentioned earlier, they have many fat droplets, they have many mitochondria, Alright, as compared to white adipocyte, you have few organelles, so few mitochondria, pero ito madami, no? And because of the abundance of mitochondria in brown adipocyte, they are responsible for generating heat. Alright, location of this brown adipose tissue or brown adipocyte, they are more abundant in the fetus, more in fetal life and infancy. So makikita to sa mga newly born. Alright, kasi kailangan nila yung body heat to the generation of body heat. Alright, located in the upper back and clavicles and also vertebrae. Sa vertebrae, sa clavicles and upper back. Again, the main function of the brown adipocyte is the generation of body heat. And this is abundant in the fetus, yung kahit yung unborn may brown adipocyte, and yung mga young babies, no, yung infants, sa infants. Okay, so I guess that's it for the adipose tissue. So again, these are the three types of adipocytes or adipose tissue. So we have white adipose tissue or white adipocyte, beige adipocyte, and yung brown adipocyte that generates heat. Alright, so next we have the areolar connective tissue. So areolar still belongs to the loose connective tissue. Areolar connective tissue or loose connective tissue is the most widely distributed connective tissue type in vertebrates. Kasama tayo dyan. It is a pliable, mesh-like, so take note of that term, mesh-like tissue with a fluid matrix. And the function of the areolar connective tissue is again cushioning, parang yung adipose, yung white adipose tissue, to cushion and to protect body organs. So again, areolar connective tissue in terms of function holds organs in place, alright, protects body organs, cushioning of body organs, and attaches epithelial tissue to other underlying tissue. Okay, so characteristics, detailed characteristics of areolar connective tissue are the following. So number one, it is characterized by an abundance of ground substance, yung extracellular matrix niya. In addition to thin and somewhat few filaments, yung fibers and cells. Number two, these fibers are secreted by cells known as fibroblasts. So the fibers that makes up the areolar connective tissue are produced or are secreted by these fibroblasts and gives this tissue a free network-like appearance, network or mesh-like appearance. Okay, hence the term areolar, meaning yung mga fibers niya parang ang gulo, they form a mesh-like network. And the collagen and reticular elastic fibers form the mesh-like structure of these connective tissues. So ang keyword natin dito yung mesh, no? Mesh-like structure, yung appearance ng mga fibers under the microscope. So these contain different types of cells. Areolar tissue contains the following types of cells like macrophages, mast cells, yung mga adipocytes, mesenchymal stem cells, and yung mga fibroblasts. The fibers make a discernible woven or web type design. Okay, yung mesh-like network niya. And lastly, there are various sorts of fibers running in every direction. In every direction meaning magulo, no? Mesh-like siya. Okay, so this is areolar connective tissue under the microscope. So you would see yung mga red na yan, those are the collagen fibers. Then yung purple thin fibers, those are the elastic fibers. Then ito yung mga mast cells and fibroblasts, na yung parang mga bilog-bilog na yan. Okay, and as you could see, medyo magulo, no? The collagen and elastic fiber, they appear as a network of mesh-like fibers as seen through the microscope. Wala silang yung mga fibers, basta they just run in different directions, no? Forming a mesh-like network. So that's the appearance of these fibers under the microscope. Ayan, no? So again, yung pula na yan, yung mga makakapal, those are the collagen fibers. Yung mga purple thin fibers, those are the elastic fibers. You could see the mast cells and yung mga fibroblasts. Alright, so these are the cellular components, no, that makes up the areolar connective tissue. So, nilagay ko na rin dito guys yung mga functions nila. So, pag sinabi nating resident cells, ito talaga yung makikita natin in areolar connective tissue. Again, so we have the fibroblast cells. So, these fibroblast cells, they synthesize the components of the extracellular matrix. Okay, then we have the macrophages. They are involved in maintaining immunity cells that protect the tissue by phagocyting potential pathogens. Alright, then we have mast cells. Mast cells, these are adaptive immunity cells that mediate wound healing process and allergic reactions. Ayan, no? So again, plays also an important role in immunity. Alright, then we have adipocytes. Again, these are cells that store fat. Okay, and we have mesenchymal stem cells that give rise to fibroblasts and new blood vessels. So these mesenchymal stem cells produces the fibroblasts. Transient cells, so ito yung mga parang dumadaan lang na cells, na like neutrophils, yung mga white blood cells like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, lymphocytes. Ayan, no? So here is a photo micrograph of these components. Ayan, so we have here the mast cells. Again, these mast cells, they play an important role in immunity, mediate wound healing process, and allergic reactions. Okay, then we have these white blood cells. Ito yung mga transient cells like lymphocytes, monocytes, ayan, eosinophils, basophils, neutrophils. Ayan yun yung mga white blood cells na yan. Alright, then we have the fibroblasts. These fibroblast cells produces the components of the extracellular matrix. Alright, then we have the usual fibers, collagen, yung makapal na fibers, and yung elastic fibers. Ito yung mga thin, long fibers. Okay, that allows the tissue to stretch and to recoil. The collagen fibers adds tensile strength to the tissue. Alright, so that's areolar. And again, you will notice that the collagen and elastic fibers, they just run in different direction, forming a mesh-like network of fibers. Okay, so I hope that's clear for areolar connective tissue. Okay, so I guess we can move on now to dense connective tissue. So we're done with loose connective. Let us now describe dense connective tissue. Now, dense connective tissue is mostly made up of tough protein fibers, collagen, and fibroblast cells. Okay, pero ang ano dito, yung tough collagen fibers. The dense connective tissue supports, protects, and holds bones, muscles, and other tissues and organs in place. So, particularly when we speak of dense connective tissue, well, we will describe the tendons and ligaments. No? So, ito yung mga tendons and ligaments. So, there are two types of dense connective tissue. We have dense regular and dense irregular. One good example of dense irregular is the dermis of the skin. Okay, alam niyo yung dermis, di ba? So, yung dermis is a type of dense irregular connective tissue. Yung dense regular, those are the tendons and ligaments. Alright, so let us now go into the details of these two types of dense connective tissue, starting with dense regular. Alright, so pag sinabi nating dense regular connective tissue, this is a white, flexible tissue that contains tightly packed bundles of collagen fibers. And these collagen fibers, they run in one direction. Na nakaparallel sila, na they appear as parallel. They just run in one direction. They are arranged parallel to the direction of forces exerted on the particular body part where the tissue is located. Okay, this arrangement is typical of tendons and ligaments, like this one, no? So as you could see here, the collagen fibers, they run parallel to each other. No, hence the term regular. Regular meaning the fibers are parallel in one direction. Alright, yan. So the dense regular connective tissue is a dense connective tissue characterized by extracellular fibers, yung collagen, arranged in parallel bundles. No, hence the term regular, dense regular. So this is evident in our tendons and ligaments. Tendons, they connect muscle to bone, and ligaments, they connect bone to another bone. Sa mga joints to makikita. Alright, so what about dense irregular? So when we speak of dense irregular connective tissue, the dense woven mesh of collagen fibers, they just run in different directions, no? Provides tensile strength and support in various directions. Yung mga collagen fibers, they just run in different direction. Parang areolar, no? It's similar to areolar. Pero mas matibay ito, no? Kaya kasi dense yung term niya. Mas matibay ito sa areolar. And they occur in sheets. Alright, so where can you find dense irregular connective tissue? So we have the following. Periosteum. Alright, you know what the periosteum is? The periosteum is the membrane that covers the bone. Alright, that's the periosteum, and the periosteum is dense irregular connective tissue. Alright, perichondrium that surrounds the cartilage. Now that's the membrane surrounding the cartilage, or perichondrium. Fibrous capsules that covers or supports the liver, kidney, and spleen. Fascia. You know what fascia is? Yung sa palaka, yung parang these are sheets of tissue that supports the organ. And lastly, we have the dermis. The dermis is a type of dense irregular connective tissue. And again, if you would observe the dermis under the microscope, yung mga collagen fibers niya and elastic fibers, they run in different directions or various directions, similar to areolar connective tissue. Okay, kaya lang ito it has more tensile strength than the areolar connective tissue. Alright, so that's dense irregular. Dense irregular connective tissue is a tissue with fibers that are not as organized. No? They are not as organized as they are in the regular type. Yan. So parang magulo yung mga fibers niya. So that's how we classify dense connective tissue. So under dense connective tissue, we have dense regular, as in the case of the tendons and ligaments, and dense irregular, as in the case of the dermis of the skin. We have the periosteum of the bone, perichondrium of the cartilage. Okay, also fascia. Okay, so next we have supportive connective tissue. So under supportive connective tissue, we have cartilage and bone. Okay? So cartilage is a type of supportive connective tissue, and this type of supportive connective tissue is composed of specialized cells called chondrocytes. Alright, chondrocytes. And these chondrocytes produces a large amount of extracellular matrix composed of collagen fibers. Ayan, no? So this is cartilage. Cartilage is made up of cells called chondrocytes. Okay, so here is a photo micrograph of cartilage showing those chondrocytes. and the extracellular matrix. Now, there are three types of cartilage tissue. So, we have hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. Where can you find elastic cartilage? You can find that in the pinna of the ear. A hyaline cartilage, which is the second most flexible. The most flexible, by the way, is elastic cartilage. So by the name itself, elastic. So flexible siya. No? It can be stretched, no? Like the pinna of the ear. Hyaline cartilage is the second most flexible. You can find it in the nose, yung intercostal cartilages ng ribs, sa trachea. Yan, no? So that's the hyaline cartilage. And fibrocartilage, which is the least flexible, you can find that in the knee. Diba may cartilage sa knee? And vertebrae, yung intercalated disc ng vertebral column. That's fibrocartilage. Okay, let us now go into the details of these types of cartilages, starting with hyaline. So, hyaline cartilage is found on many joint surfaces. It contains no nerves, no blood vessels, and the structure of hyaline cartilage is relatively simple. If a thin slice of cartilage is examined under the microscope, it will be found to consist of cells of a rounded or bluntly angular form. So as you could see in this photo micrograph, blunt angular form yung bilog-bilog sila, no? Blunt or rounded yung mga cells, lying in groups of 2 or more. Ayan, as you could see here, and you have here groups of chondrocytes. Ayan, ito 3, ito 4. So by groups sila, they are arranged in groups of 2 or more in a granular or almost homogeneous matrix. Ayan, it's clear in this photo micrograph. No? So this is hyaline cartilage. The chondrocytes are arranged in groups of 2 or more. And the cells, the chondrocytes, are blunt, no, or angular in form, arranged in groups. Okay, these cells have generally straight outlines where they are in contact with each other. Ayan, so that's hyaline cartilage. Okay, so where can you find hyaline cartilage? Yan, sa nose, ito. And yung intercostal cartilages ng ribs. Also sa trachea. Then we have elastic cartilage. So elastic cartilage, sometimes referred to as yellow fibrocartilage, is a type of cartilage that provides both strength and elasticity. Okay, so nai-stretch siya to certain parts of the body, such as the pinna of the ear, no, yung ating tenga, yung pinna, yung outer ear. Alright, within the outer ear, it provides the skeletal basis of the pinna, as well as the lateral region of the external auditory meatus, yung eardrum. Okay, yung lateral region niya is also made up of this elastic cartilage that allows the eardrum to vibrate, no? Nai-stretch yung eardrum para makapag-vibrate siya. Elastic cartilage is also found in the epiglottis, yung flap of tissue, diba, that opens and closes every time we swallow so that the food doesn't go to the air passages. Yan, so that's the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a type of elastic cartilage. Okay, as well as the corniculate and the cuneiform laryngeal cartilages. Yung natin, yung sa may vocal cords, na sa may larynx, di ba? Yung those structures that supports the vocal cords, yan, mga cartilages yan, and they are of the elastic type. Elastic cartilage. So, the vocal cords can allow to vibrate, no, producing sound. Alright, elastic cartilage appear more opaque and yellow than hyaline cartilage because of abundant elastic fibers in its matrix. Elastic cartilage is resilient, easily returning to its original shape, so that they can recoil, they can be stretched, and they can recoil after bending or distortion. So kailangan to ng larynx kasi di ba yung vocal cords na nagbabibrate, so kailangan dapat elastic yung cartilage doon. Okay, has more flexibility and elasticity than other cartilage types. So here is a photo micrograph of elastic cartilage. Ayan, no? So marami siyang elastic fibers. Yan, and mas opaque siya, no? Ang hyaline kasi, actually the word hyaline means glassy. Glassy in appearance siya, no? Yung hyaline. Ito hindi more opaque siya. In contrast to the hyaline cartilage which is glassy in appearance. Then yung fibrocartilage, halos ganito din sa elastic, kaya lang hindi siya ganun ka-flexible. And you can find that in the knee, yung knee, and also dun sa intercalated disc ng vertebral column. Okay, so that's cartilage. Next, we have bone tissue. Alright, so bone tissue is a specialized form of connective tissue and it is the main element of the skeletal system, no, yung ating framework, body framework. It is composed of cells called osteocytes and the extracellular matrix in which fibers are embedded. The extracellular matrix is calcified. Bone tissue is unlike other connective tissues in that the extracellular matrix becomes calcified. Alright? Unlike yung cartilage in which the extracellular matrix is collagen. Ito naman, calcium. Kaya matigas siya para siyang semento. So this is bone tissue under the microscope. So there are, as you could see under the microscope, there are concentric rings of cells. There are concentric rings and those concentric rings are called osteon. Ayan, no? So this is one osteon. Here is another osteon. An osteon is composed of concentric rings, ring-like structures. Yung mga cells, ito yung mga itim-itim na yan, those cells are called the osteocytes. That's the osteon, and the osteon is made up of these concentric rings or layers. Okay, along the calcified matrix. So this is one osteon. Ito, no? Ayan, ito yung isang osteon. An osteon is made up of these concentric layers of rings. Alright, then embedded in the matrix, ito yung mga cells called osteocytes. The osteocytes are located in tiny cavities called lacuna. The lacuna is the space where the osteocytes are found. Okay, the lamella is the matrix itself. Then at the center of the osteon is a central canal or Haversian canal. So this is the central canal that is surrounded by the concentric rings na yan of extracellular matrix. Ang laman ng central canal are blood vessels and nerves. And if you will look closely at an osteocyte, yung lacuna, the osteocyte is surrounded by hair-like channels. So parang mga maliliit na channels surrounding the osteocytes. We call them the canaliculi. The canaliculi, these are tiny hair-like channels that are branching and surrounding the osteocytes. Ayan, no? Alright, so that's the structure of bone tissue. Ayan, so again, itong mga circles na to, circular structures, those are the osteon. An osteon is made up of concentric layers of rings. Alright, then yung mga dark structures na yan that forms the concentric rings, they are called the osteocytes or the bone cells themselves. Okay, the bone cells are embedded in a tiny space called lacuna. At the center of the osteon is the Haversian canal or central canal. It contains blood vessels and nerves. And surrounding the osteocytes are tiny hair-like channels called canaliculi. Those are the types of supportive connective tissue, so cartilage and bone. Okay, let's proceed now to the fluid connective tissue. So the fluid connective tissue is our blood. Okay, the blood is the only liquid tissue in our body. Liquid connective tissue ang dugo natin. And it is composed of liquid and solid components. The liquid component of our blood is plasma, and the solid components are the blood cells. Alright, so a quick description of plasma. Plasma is composed of 55% of the body fluid, and it is composed mostly of water, 90% by volume. Plasma also contains other dissolved substances like proteins, glucose, mineral ions, hormones, carbon dioxide, yung mga dissolved gases, no, like carbon dioxide, oxygen, and including platelets and the blood cells themselves. Okay, so that's plasma, which is the liquid part of our blood. The solid part of our blood are the blood cells themselves. Okay, the blood cells present in our blood are the red blood cells or erythrocytes, the white blood cells or leukocytes, and the platelets or thrombocytes. Alright, so what you're seeing now on screen are the erythrocytes or the red blood cells. So they are the most abundant of the blood cells, no, the erythrocytes. Now, under the microscope, the erythrocytes are biconcave disc, para silang donut o para silang salbabida. They are biconcave disc. They are denucleated, meaning wala silang nucleus. Alright, this is to accommodate more oxygen. Pag walang nucleus, they can carry more oxygen. But the consequence is that they have a very limited lifespan kasi walang nucleus. Their lifespan, I think, is only 120 days. So, limited yung lifespan niya, and one primary factor is the absence of the... Pero may nucleus siya ng early stages of development niya, kaya lang habang nagmamature yung erythrocyte, nawawala yung nucleus. And these erythrocytes, they contain this very important protein called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin makes the red blood cell reddish in color, and hemoglobin also maintains the overall shape of the red blood cell or erythrocyte, which is a biconcave disc. Okay, so moving on. Alright, and the main function of these erythrocytes is to carry oxygen because hemoglobin has a very high affinity for oxygen. So the main function of these erythrocytes is that they carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. No? They carry oxygen to the body cells and removes carbon dioxide. Alright, so those are the erythrocytes or our red blood cells. Alright, let's proceed now to the leukocyte. Okay, so leukocytes, they are larger than the red blood cells or erythrocytes. They are nucleated, so meron silang nucleus. And their main function is to protect our body from foreign invaders. In fact, they engulf or they phagocytize bacteria and other foreign invaders. So they are considered the soldiers of our body. So they play an important role in our immune system. Okay, by engulfing bacteria and other foreign invaders. Okay, so siguro para mas malalim yung ating discussion, let us classify these leukocytes. There are two major types of leukocytes. We have the so-called granulocytes and the agranulocytes. Granulocytes, they're called granulocytes because under the microscope, there are granules embedded in the cytoplasm. So there are granules that are seen or embedded in the cytoplasm, hence granulocytes. Agranulocytes meaning walang granules dun sa cytoplasm. Absence of these granules. So hence the term agranulocytes. So under granulocytes, we have the following. We have the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Under a granulocyte, we have the monocytes and yung mga lymphocytes. So, let's describe those cells. Ayan, so neutrophils, ayan, mga granulocytes, they are the following: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Neutrophils, they kill bacteria, fungi, and foreign debris together with eosinophils. Ang eosinophils, they kill parasites, yung mga parasitic worms, and they are involved in allergic response. So with basophils, yan mga ano yan, granulocytes. And for granulocytes, we have the macrophage, yan, or monocytes, and we have lymphocytes, yan, mga granulocytes yan that help fight viruses and make antibodies. Okay, so para maging detailed tayo, here is a table that shows the description, type, and function of these leukocytes. Alright, so first we have neutrophil. Neutrophil is a type of granulocyte, and the function of the neutrophil is to defend the body against bacterial and fungal infection. They are most commonly released with early acute infection. Alright, and they make up 60% of the total leukocyte count, and the lifespan is about 5 days. Kasi pag kumain sila, pag nag-phagocytosis sila, they die immediately. Ayan, so then we have eosinophils. Eosinophil is a type of granulocyte. They are inflammatory cells and they play an important role in allergic reactions and parasitic invasion. Pag may nag-invade ng mga parasitic worms, yun doon sila atake. Alright, then we have basophils. Basophil is a type of granulocyte, and just like eosinophil, they also play an important role in allergic reactions. Then we have monocyte. Monocyte is a type of agranulocyte, and they are also known as macrophages, which are responsible for phagocytosis. They engulf pathogenic cells, and they present pathogens to T cells, which kills them. Ayan, itong mga lymphocytes, they produce antibodies that fight viruses. Under the microscope, ito lang pakita ko. Under the microscope, itong neutrophils, trilobe. Nakikita nyo yung nucleus niya, parang trilobe siya. Alright, ang eosinophil naman para siyang bean shape yung nucleus niya. Ang basophil, it's the same, kaya lang mas maliit yung pagka-letter C ng kanyang nucleus. Alright, and ito yung description niya with their functions. Okay, and next we have thrombocytes. Thrombocytes or platelets, they are not really cells, but these are cell fragments. And these thrombocytes, they play an important role in blood clotting. Ayan, so ang mga thrombocytes are not really cells, but these are cell fragments. Okay? Ayan guys, so those are the types of connective tissue. So, connective tissue proper, supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. Nerve tissue is one of the most complex tissue in our body, and it is abundant. It is the substance of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. So our brain, spinal cord, and nerves are made up of this type of tissue. Nerve tissue requires more oxygen and nutrients than any other body tissue, and the basic unit of nerve tissue is the neuron. Okay, this highly specialized cell, the neuron, receives stimuli from and conducts impulses to all parts of the body. Okay, so here is a neuron, and we have the following parts. So we have the dendrites. The dendrites, they receive nerve impulses and delivers them to the cell body or soma. Then the soma delivers the nerve impulses away through the axon. The axon is the structure of the neuron that delivers the impulses away from the cell body or soma. Okay, the axon is surrounded by a myelin sheath that acts like an insulator, and there are specialized segments of the axon called the Schwann cell. Okay, the Schwann cell. Okay, and lastly, we have muscle tissue. What's so special about muscle tissue? They can shorten or contract. They have the ability to shorten and to contract. Okay, muscle tissue is composed of cells that have the special ability to shorten or to contract in order to produce body movement. Okay, this tissue is highly cellular and it is well supplied with blood vessels. Alright, and there are three types of muscle tissue. We have cardiac, skeletal, and smooth. Okay, let us describe briefly these types of muscle tissue, starting with skeletal. Striated or voluntary. The tissue is called skeletal because this type of muscle tissue is usually attached to the body framework or sa bones natin. Hence the term skeletal. It is called voluntary because this muscle is under the control of the will. It is under conscious control. Striated because under the microscope, the muscle tissue has bands. It is banded in appearance. This muscle tissue has a banded or belted appearance. So may mga stripes or striations under the microscope. Hence the term striated. Okay? Alright, so again, skeletal because this type of muscle tissue is attached to the body framework or the bone. Voluntary because this muscle is under conscious control. Striated because the muscle has a banded or belted appearance. So meaning there are stripes or striations. Alright, next we have smooth. It is called smooth because obviously under the microscope there are no striations or stripes. The muscle does not exhibit any banded or belted appearance. Now, hence the term smooth. Involuntary because this muscle is not under conscious control. Okay, you can find this muscle in the alimentary canal, no, like esophagus, stomach, intestine. Yan, visceral because this muscle can be found in the internal organs, no, like the digestive organs. Okay, and if you will notice, the cells are spindle-shaped. No? This smooth muscle is composed of spindle-shaped cells with a central nucleus. By the way, I forgot. For skeletal, the cells are multinucleated. No? The cells are multinucleated and they are long. For smooth muscle, the cells are spindle-shaped with a central nucleus. Okay, and lastly, we have cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is similar to skeletal muscle in which skeletal muscle because under the microscope, the cardiac muscle has striations. No? It has a banded or belted appearance like the skeletal muscle. And this is similar to the smooth muscle because the cardiac muscle is not under conscious control. Yan. And you can find this muscle in the wall of the heart. Yung muscular wall ng heart natin. Okay? Alright guys, so here is a table showing the description of the three types of muscle. So for skeletal, the cells are long and cylindrical, striated with bands or stripes. Okay, and multinucleated. Multinucleated siya. Function, voluntary movement. Yan, so the muscle is under conscious control, responsible for the movement of the body framework and protects organs. Yan, location niya attached to the bones, around the entry and exit sites of the body, like the mouth and anus. Okay, for smooth muscle, the cells are spindle-shaped with a single nucleus, like what I mentioned earlier. Function, involuntary movement, so the muscle is not under conscious control. Moves the food. You can find this in the digestive organs. Okay, control of respiration, like the diaphragm. Okay, moves secretion, regulates flow of blood, arteries by contraction. And lastly, we have the cardiac muscle, short branch, striated like the skeletal muscle, and it is not under conscious control like the smooth muscle. You can find this in the muscular walls of the heart.